every soil is different. So not necessarily such a thing as a good reading. Soil biology, it's got a few factors. If you think if you're asking that question, you're most likely going to be asking about in terms of what they're doing in the soil. And so you can have, exaggeration, but you can have two bacteria that are really lazy. And you can have two bacteria, I've got weird stuff on my desk, two bacteria that are incredibly hard workers. So there can be the same biomass between the two, the same total weight of microbes in your soil, which is what you usually measure. But these ones are working hard and these ones aren't. And you get two very different outcomes. So one of the easiest and quickest and cheapest ways to actually put a number on these things is to use something like a microbiometer, which is a readily available tool, costs about $300. Use it with your smartphone. And for about $10 a sample, you can measure the total microbial biomass in the soil per liter or cubic centimeter. And it'll tell you the balance between bacteria and fungi. That's something that's pretty easy to get caught up on, the balance between the two. But generally, if you've got lots and lots of bacteria and only a few fungi, things might be out of whack. It could be a temporary thing. If you've got heaps and heaps of fungi and no bacteria, it's probably not very productive soil. Like it'll hold water and do stuff like that, but it won't actually grow much. You're looking for somewhere in the middle. 50-50 I think is good. There's all sorts of different opinions, and even in soils that I know are functioning amazingly, if I test them day to day, they can change a lot. And if I'd read it this day, I'd tell one story. If I read it the other day, I'd tell another story. If I put all the days together, I'd tell another story again. So you can measure the biomass and the breakdown like that. You can do more complicated tests where you send it off to a lab and they come back with how many species there are and a bit of a breakdown of what some of those are. That's really interesting. If you're a very experienced microbiologist, that can tell you something interesting, but it's really easy as a soil manager to get caught up on saying, okay, I've got too many actinomycetes or something like that, and start to manage those. But that measurement on that day could have just been because conditions were perfect on this day, and the populations can go up and down and double in a day easily, double or half. So you're seeing a story of that day, and it is useful to get a total measure of diversity. If you've got lots and lots and lots and lots of species and you used to have not very many at all, then that is a great result no matter what the species is. I tend to lean away from looking at individual species and looking at the overall amounts. And the diversity is more important than what in each individual species, because you can have well, here's a number, 500 micrograms of carbon per milliliter of soil, or gram of soil, you put it either way. That is a moderate measurement, depending on where you are. In the desert, that's a huge result. In a tropical, or not tropical area, but a subtropical, highly productive grassland, that's a tiny amount. But regardless, you could have 500 micrograms of one species that all it's doing is chewing out carbon, and that's a terrible result. Or you could have 500 micrograms of an incredibly diverse soil biology with thousands and thousands of different species that is doing all sorts of wonderful things for the soil, but this total amount of biomass was the same on that day. Very different outcomes. It's one of those things that becomes hard because we don't have a overall really quick fix, simple answer, or measurement rather. There's all these things that come together and they can vary day to day. Even when the tool is incredibly accurate, things vary so much it's hard to tell a story. But there's something even better that's had millions of years of development in it, and it makes me sound like I'm a weird hippie, but not there's anything wrong with hippies. Using your nose. Your nose is a incredibly cheap, incredibly effective way of measuring the activity on a certain day and over time. It doesn't cost you anything extra to dig a hole and sniff the soil every day. I'm not saying you need to do that, but if you wanted to learn, that's one way of doing it. Your nose and your instincts together, this is hard science. This is an incredibly sensitive and complicated tool that we cannot replicate with machines. We can make some machines that for individual compounds are more sensitive, but we cannot make a machine that can be as sensitive across so many things at the same time, and do so many different compounds, thousands and thousands and thousands of different compounds we can smell. When microbes do activity, when microbes do things in the soil, they're doing carbon chemistry, and that creates aromatic compounds. Aromatic is a structural definition, but it's also things that we can smell. The more activity that's happening in the soil, the more smell will be produced. The more diversity of activity in the soil, the more complex the smell. So you don't need to be able to pick apart the things, but we instinctively know that you can have someone who's never ever dug a hole in their life, has never even thought about soil. You take them out if they're in a city apartment and blindfold them and drag them to a farm and dig a hole, make them sniff, kicking and screaming, a bad soil and a good soil. And by bad soil and good soil, I mean a soil with pretty much no microbial activity and a soil with high and diverse microbial activity, and they will point to the good one every single time, because it's something built into us unless you actually have no sense of smell at all. And even then, looking at it, we still know. It blows my mind over and over and over how you can dig a hole and show it to someone and go, oh, that's good, no matter where they come from. Same with compost. So the best tool that we have, and probably the most accurate once you've had a bit of a play with it, is digging a hole in the soil, holding a bit up of the topsoil up to your nose and having a sniff. That'll tell you as reliably as any test that I know of, no matter how expensive the machine, and it'll cost you nothing extra than what you're already going to spend every day just to have the farm. Yeah, and you can do it all day, every day, and you will be right on that day. If you're using a microbiometer, good and bad readings, it can only measure down to about 200 and 250 micrograms per thing. So if you get less than that, it won't show up. Getting 1,000 is an amazing result. I haven't seen anything above 2,000 in person yet, but they're probably out there. Normally, I'm pretty happy if it's over 500 and it's not dominated by one species, by one group, bacteria or fungi. If it's somewhere within about 60-40, then either way, then that is going to be amazing.